How's it going, everybody? QOPPPP back for another Krunker video, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at maybe the best settings for Krunker Season 8 Reloaded. So as you can see, I'm on an old account here, and basically what I'm doing at the moment is just grinding, trading, and trying to get rich in Krunker. So you'll see me on this alt quite a bit, but basically, we're going to take a look at these settings, and I believe these are probably some of the best settings for comp and casual at the moment. And we'll go through a few different options for whether you're a comp player or a casual player. You have to make sure you're signed in, and you have the advanced settings tab turned on. So we'll start off at the network settings. So by the way, I'll have a link to the copy and paste of these settings in the description of the video if you want to get an exact copy of them, but I'll run through it just so people can choose and, you know, mix and match what's right for them. So basically, the network rate I have set to 144, and I just have it set to the hertz on my monitor, which is 144, so I'd recommend just having that on, and it just is just a good setting to have on. I personally use Legacy browser, but that's only because I played the game when it was first released. Like, played the older versions of the game, so that's what's more natural to me. If I turn that off, when you go find a game, I believe, yeah, it's different. It's set to free for all, and then you have to scroll through all the different servers. So I prefer to have it on Legacy, as it's just easier for me, and I think it's personally better as you can just automatically go to the exact server that you want to go to. Moving on to the experimental settings, I personally have raw mouse input and mouse flick fix on. I feel like raw mouse input is just a little bit better, as it gives me better control over, opposed to having it off. Mouse fix is good to have on, and sometimes I think it's to counter counter mouse glitches when using your mouse, basically. And I also have instant ring around, and I believe this is supposed to help with your FPS. If you turn it on, you will need to reset your end. Moving on to the controls for my sensitivity, I have 6 on all of them. Now, personally, I would I play around with these. These are definitely up to you. You need to just figure out what's right for you. When I look at my keybind, I think they're all pretty default. I have my what do you call it? My calling in stuff, you know. The streak slot set to my mouse buttons is probably everything I've changed, and I personally would recommend that quite heavily, due to just the fact that it's quite easy to choke or just mess up when you're trying to fumble around with the keys at the top of your keyboard, because it's just not really a natural hand position when you play Krunker. If we move on to the display here, I have the UI scale set to 0.7. I use old UI. I just find it a bit nicer compared to the new one. Sorry, show UI obviously is on, and I use dynamic HP bars and show profile pictures. I think most of this is default. Sometimes I like to mess around with the crit damage, but I don't have the hit indicators on. They're off. Obviously I have show ping on and show FPS on. FPS update is at 0 milliseconds. Sometimes I do it on show movement speed. It depends. But I do. Main thing change here is that I don't have name on. I just have health only. I personally think that's better if you're a comp player, especially. It's just easier to focus on the target. There's less going on, and yeah, it's easier to see what you're trying to hit. Obviously, you've got to have high non-treble skins on. It's absolutely life changing if you're doing a lot of training. Most of you probably already know about this setting, but trust me, you want to have it on. I have the minimap off. It's just FPS thing, and I'm not really used to it. I have classic medals on. A lot of people don't like to use medals, but I personally do. It's kind of good for when you're doing challenges. It's kind of good to see what you can get. I prefer classic medals, to be honest. It's also just another nostalgia thing. Played the game back when it was like that, so just like prefer it like that. I don't have any of the chat change, and if we move on to the next thing, it's the crosshair. Now, I personally like the solid circle. I think it's probably one of the best crosshairs, but you can go cross if you want. I used to play cross. I changed the circle. I seem to get better aim. It's just a personal preference, I reckon. You must click always on, and you can mess around the color. It's up to you, but I'd say the sizes you'd want is about 4 or 3. I have it on 4, but I think 3 could be quite good for people as well. I have the normal crosshair settings for the throwing knife default. They're just default. I haven't really touched them. Don't really feel the need to. When I have hit markers on, and they're all default. And basically that's it for display settings. So if we move on to render, now render is very interchangeable. So I just have it set to what my PC can run the best. I have a decent PC, so I have resolution set on 8. It's you can't really tell the difference between 8 and 1, and just put it down to 8. It just gives a nice little FPS boost. I have map details off, particles off, anti-aliasing off, and I do play on low spec. I just like to I prioritize performance over looks, to be honest. So most of these are all down to the lowest possible. So I have particle distance at bottom, reflection quality at lowest, and then I have all these turned off. It's really optional, but I personally think they're better for comp players, especially, or more high skill casual players. They make the game run smoother, and it's probably easier focus, not as much going on. I do have texture animations on. It's probably the only thing I have on. It just makes the game a little bit more playable. It does look a little bit nicer. I have lighting on low, and then object animations off, scheme shakes off. You can have object animations on. I think that's mainly for skins and that, but stuff like weapon shine, you don't need that, and screen shake and show explosion is just going to distract you, honestly, more than it's just going to hinder and really help. I have post-processing on, and I believe most of the stuff is default except for the charge bar, which I have set either the charge bar settings. I have it vertically rotated 90 degrees, so usually it's vertically, but I have it horizontally rotated. I just find it a bit nicer. But that's basically it for render settings. If we go to game, now here's mainly the main settings. Anonymous mode is only if you're verified. Show premium badge, all this stuff is basically up to you. I just have it on, it's on my default most of the time thing. But the view model settings are probably where it gets a bit complicated. So I have my FOV set to 90. I believe that is default for the weapon FOV. And I think field of view, the normal FOV at 100 is normal. Now, weapon bobbing I have set to 2. Now, you don't really want to have a high weapon bob. If you play with your show weapon on, I think the game's a bit more sleek with a lower weapon bob. I think it looks a little bit weird if you have it completely off, so I settled for 2. It's just the perfect amount. Like when I'm playing, it's just when I'm B hopping, it's the perfect amount of rotation, I guess you could say, for my liking. But yeah, so I have that set to 2, weapon lean set to 6, weapon rotation set to 0, and then the weapon X offset is set to 1.3, the Y offset is 2, and the Z offset is 0.9. This basically just means where the weapon sits on your screen. So as you can see here, the gun doesn't sit where it does by default, and that's just, honestly, that's just really a personal preference thing. I think it's nicer, casual player, just a bit more sleek, you know, and it just allows you to just focus a bit more on the game, because the gun's not up in your grill as much. If we move on, I have weapon aim animation on, and here we go, hide weapon on ADS. That is a big one you want to have on. I reckon it makes the game a lot better to play, in my opinion. I usually have show hands on. It's just a bit of a personal preference thing again. I like to have them on. I think it feels a bit more like Krunker with it on, but sometimes I like to turn it off every now and then, you know, for a little laugh. But it really depends on your sort of thing. Now, here's the main setting for comp players that I'd recommend is the show primary. Is, if you're playing comp, I recommend you have it off. Now, I think it is better, it's just better to aim. Now, especially for like triggerman, it's I play with show weapon off, and I just find that it's easy to aim that way. Now it's different when I'm playing sniper. When I'm playing sniper, I prefer to have show weapon on. But I think it's just when you're aiming, it's just a bit easier to aim when you with sniper if you have show primary on. So if you're a sniper main, I'd recommend keeping the setting on. But if you're a comp player that plays mainly AK or SMG or any other class like that, I'd recommend having that off. And I think it just really helps with your just your aim and that. I still have show secondary and show melee on, because I still want to see those guns, and you don't use them as much. You could have show secondary off, but sometimes I find if you have that on, it's hard, it can be a bit of a problem, because sometimes you might accidentally switch your secondary and you don't notice. But obviously show melee you want to have on, because you want to see the melee skins, because the melee skins are some of the best looking skins in the game. I have left-handed mode off. It's pretty freaking cursed in my opinion, but if you like playing like that, it's whatever, you know, up to you. It's not too bad, like you could get used to it pretty quickly, to be honest. I don't know why anyone would want to have this setting on, it's kind of weird. But yeah. So yeah, that is so scuffed. I don't know why anyone would ever want to play the game like that. Rounded arms is off, and wallfly jumping, I just haven't touched. Basically, most of the stuff is pretty standard. I don't think I've played with any of it. I do have, although I have no scope checked on sniper. I personally just think it's bit better for aiming. But if you have a custom scope, or you want to use one of the scopes they have available, they have some YouTuber scopes that you can use. By all means go for it. I used to play with the Swixy scope, I believe, was my go-to one. Oh no. Yeah, so I used to jam the Swixy scope. That was my go-to back in the day, but as I got a bit better, playing with no scope is probably a bit better. It's more accurate, I reckon. Sniping is not the best. I'm not a sniper main. Hear me out. I believe in Kimbo Uzis need a nerf like ASAP, bro. Like they are they're really broken, especially like if actually a good player uses them. They're really good. Because mostly they're used by bots, but you know, this new map's so cool though. Has like jump belts in there as well. Can we get it there? I think so. They added a bunch of new maps. This is one of my favorite. I reckon this actually will be one of the best maps in the game. I think when they just release a new map, it's just like a little bit it's not as optimized, so it kills your FPS a little bit. But I am not playing the best right now. Recording makes me stutter quite a bit. It's quite a lot of input delay compared to when I normally play. It kills my FPS a bit. But yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for my settings. I don't really have the sound settings changed. I don't have unlimited FPS on. It's really personal. I just like to have mine capped at like the rate of my monitor. But I have it capped through NVIDIA control panel. Let me know if you want a video on that separately, the best NVIDIA control panel settings for Krunker. But yeah, I just find it like it's a bit better on the PC. It's better to have it capped at your monitor's refresh rate instead of unlimited. Not as much work, I guess you could say. Experimental features is off. I don't really haven't really touched this stuff except for probably unlimited FPS, which was on originally. I had it on originally, and I decided it was better to have my frames capped. So yeah, let me know if you want a video on that. I will go through the best NVIDIA control panel settings for Krunker, the best FPS. But yeah, that's basically it for the video. I'll make sure to export these settings so you can just come in here and import them and just paste them in there, and that means you can get them straight away. Just remember, I do recommend messing around with sensitivity. Make it your own. It's really up to you. But yeah, go ahead and try these settings out for yourself.